Mick Corrigan here from Action Coach, and today I'm delighted to introduce you to Jawad Bhatti. Jawad is the founder of Spark. Spark, what a name, Jawad. Tell us all about it.
Absolutely. So firstly, yeah, thank you, Mick, for kind of inviting me on this platform. It's kind of an absolute privilege and honor to kind of talk about Spark. So in terms of Spark, it's really something that came about through personal experience. So, if you go back to not so long ago, to kind of COVID, and the kind of really strange experience we all went through, where there was a lot of uncertainty, there was a lot of instability. A lot of people were sadly made redundant or furloughed. So, if I put my kind of work hat on and just kind of relive my experience, we were basically told, you're working remotely, just like that, and don't come back to the office until we tell you. I then got furloughed as well. So I was then totally detached from kind of what was my life. Work is your life. For many people, we spend the majority of the time in a working capacity. So there was that little bit of isolation, but then we were told we couldn't go to the gym, we couldn't socialize, we couldn't even meet members of our family. So in that kind of scenario, obviously, you spend the majority of your time in a working capacity. I then started looking into, what kind of support do I have, in my current situation? So I'm still formally employed, but what kind of facility or support do I have? And sadly, a lot of HR professionals as well, they were feeling the brunt of it because some of them were made laid off, some of them were furloughed. So the pressure on them was absolutely immense, and it's really commendable how they got through it. Really, but in that kind of scenario, I quickly realised that there was a bit of a deficit in terms of support for my well-being, and there wasn't any kind of known practice to reach out to. There wasn't any comms sent out that said, when we kind of, let you work remotely or furlough you, reach out to us here or do this or do that. We were very much left on our own, I think, and I'm not kind of criticizing it. I think it's just the way things happen. But one of the things that I did highlight was the kind of well-being support mechanism for me wasn't very visible. I then kind of learned that we did have some kind of well-being support, but it just got lost in the induction. And I then did some further research on things like employee assistance programs, which we had in play. And there's only a 5% adoption rate for those. So and it is something which again, I'm gonna just be really kind of brutally honest about it. I think a lot of organizations believe that we are resources are stretched, so let's get an EAP in, let's roll it out to staff, and our job's done in terms of well-being. A lot of organizations since COVID are getting a bit more proactive, but adoption rates are really low. There's barriers. As a middle-aged bloke, I'm reluctant on a good day to talk to someone about my well-being or mental health. So I'm not definitely not going to just reach out to an EAP and say, look, I've got an issue. I need to speak to someone. So I guess it kind of highlighted that there was very little in the way of a preventative, non-invasive tool to kind of support me with well-being, which I could use at my leisure. And then secondly, when we did go back to work, I did start speaking to my peers, speaking to HR professionals, and then widen that net to other organizations, to other employees, and quickly realized that, in terms of not only a poor adoption rate, there was also very little visibility on the impact of what organizations were spending on kind of well-being. So that was clearly, there was two areas that I thought there was a problem. One was a kind of non-invasive, preventative, holistic wellbeing tool for staff members, and then some kind of a data-led insights engine, which organizations could look at and say, okay, in an anonymized fashion, these are potential, problem areas we've got within the organization, and these are potentially what are the trigger points. But we then took it a step further and said, through data analysis, this is how you can actually mitigate those risks. So, what we
So here's the
cleverly,
solution.
exactly,
So tell us the solution, Jawad. What came
ex-
about?
exactly. So the solution is where, using kind of data science, using, my background of 20 plus years working in data, is aggregating, and, scientifically looking at the behavioral traits of users in a very unique fashion. We can actually then segment that and say, go back to the organization and say, look, everything seems hunky-dory as far as you know. However, 10% of your staff are about to go off sick. And a lot of organizations like, how have you detected that? Well, we've actually got qualitative and quantitative research going on within the application itself. So we can actually detect a lot of signs, a lot of critical signs, and relay that back very concisely to well-being professionals within the organization to say, look, you've got this risk. These are the potential trigger points. However, this is what you might want to do to mitigate those risks. So we're actually joining all the dots. So we've got this 24/7 wellbeing platform for application, mobile application for staff members, which looks after the mental, physical, social, and financial well-being. Again, a lot of applications look purely on the mental well-being side of things, and they don't cover the other three pillars. And then at the same time, we've joined those dots back for the organization to say, okay, this is what's kind of happening on the ground. We're not going to tell you who these users are, but what we can tell you, there's enough critical mass to suggest, people are going to go off sick because, they're kind of not waking up fresh. They're not kind of satisfied. There are, murmurings. There are, potential issues at the grassroots level, and now you need to actually think and do something about it. So we're passing that duty of care back to the organization. So whilst you've got this 24/7 support, which is like a lot of EAPs, a lot of wellbeing applications where tick box, yeah, we've got something for the staff. And we know through our research and working with over 400 users, it is seeing positive impact, it is seeing positive effects. At the same time, we didn't want to leave the organization with nothing. So we have got this proactive tool where organization can say, look, we've indirectly we understand what's going on, and now we need to implement these changes. So you've got a two-pronged attack to solve your well-being issues, which if you quantify what those issues look like, according to Deloitte, it costs an organization over £1,600 a year per employee, if you don't kind of do something about it. So if you just let things happen as they're doing, you're going to get a bill, and that's a conservative estimate because some rehiring costs can be into the thousands. So you've got someone who's leaving because it's a toxic workplace, it's affecting their well-being. It's cost you to kind of pay a recruitment agency potentially, or LinkedIn or whatever. It's going to cost you to retrain a new starter. But critically, if they're a good member of your team, you've lost that knowledge, and it's going to take you not months, maybe years to get back to the level that you had before. So these are costs which a lot of organizations aren't really understanding or measuring, but we help them understand that. And we help
Yeah.
put in a very concise way, this is what it's going to cost you. And this is what you need to do. So we make
And
that solution really easy to follow.
and Joe, just give us an example of maybe something that I know you don't need to name the organization, but
Yeah, yeah,
what an organization has done, an example of what they've done based on having seen the data and staring down the
yeah,
barrel of an issue, and they've
yeah.
gone, right, we need to do something. What gives an example of something they've done?
Yeah, so we specifically work with a an e-commerce business, and obviously it's very seasonal. So let's say, for example, coming up to kind of peak periods like Christmas time, when people are doing a lot of shopping, they need staffing levels to be absolutely optimum. With everyone's feeling a hit, everyone's feeling a hit in the pocket, and organisations have to be very effective. So what they traditionally found was, if they lose one or two members of staff, for example, from absence leading up to peak periods, the cost of then having to hire a temp, train up that temp, and then you let them go. It's a waste of kind of resource and finances. So we specifically work with this organisation to improve the kind of absence or attendance rates leading up to kind of this seasonal period. And we actually found, an 8% improvement in attendance from staff members actually using the platform. So, staff members were kind of feeling better. They were, improving the kind of well-being. Because one thing, just to kind of point out as well, why we focus on the four pillars and not just the mental health, is they're actually all interlinked. So your physical, mental, financial, and social well-being are interlinked. So, for example, if let's say you're not in a good place mentally, you're feeling depressed for whatever reason, it's coming up to payday, and you need to pay certain bills. You're not going to have that 100% clarity of what you're doing. You're going to rush into decisions. You might take out a loan, which then impacts, your credit, and now you're further in debt, and you're further kind of in a financial problem. Your mates are saying, "Let's go for a drink, let's go out." You're saying, "Well, I'm skint," so you become a bit reclusive. It's going to impact your social well-being, and I'm not even going to go out for a walk with my dog, which is going to implicate my physical well-being, because I'm ashamed to show my face out there. Conversely, if you work on, one or more of those pillars, it's going to have a direct knock-on effect. So, if let's say, I look after my financial well-being, I can get into a bit more social, surroundings. My social well-being goes up as well. My mental well-being, my self-esteem increases as well. I'm feeling, a lot more confident, a lot more happier. I will then go to the gym because A, I can afford to, and B, I can show my face. I do feel good. So it will help your physical well-being. And that's coming back to the point on people going off sick. So if you are now improving your pillars, and it's then positively impacting your physical well-being. We saw that attendance actually improve, like I said, by 8% on a comparative quarter-on-quarter comparison. And the organization as well, they could see that risk level reduce month on month, which was fantastic. So they were seeing the benefits of the application. They were seeing the trend of mood increasing in the organization, and the tangible benefit is that they saved a lot of money on kind of temp staff, and productivity wise, a really good established staff member is always going to outperform any new starter, any temps member of staff. It's just that, going from a stop to start position, the established members are already off the block, whereas, and no disrespect to temp or new starters, obviously, but it takes time to get them up to speed, and by that time your season's over. So you might as well not have hired them, if that kind of makes sense, and just taken the kind of financial hit. But
So,
so
so
that, yeah,
the prevention tactic really is for the employees to use the app and
absolutely.
get stuck into the resources that are available on there to improve those pillars that you mentioned.
And absolutely. And, one of the reasons why we have got, I'm going to use the word stickiness, yeah, from users is, we've designed the application to be as non-invasive as possible, as, non-intruding. So, there's none of this kind of use this app, use this app, use this app. You work at your leisure. You work to your strengths. You achieve using the application, and you celebrate the wins within the application. So we've got all the resources, but we also have this element of, I'm actually making inroads on my well-being, and, fantastic, and there's the kind of badges and the points. Um, but ultimately, it's that reflectiveness where you can look back and say, fantastic, pat on the back, I've done a really good job. So we've built all that into the platform, and we've designed it specifically to kind of be very, positive and improving well-being.
And I guess that's your differentiator, is it, Jawad? That it's not just mental health; it's physical, social, and financial as well as.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and absolutely, and we've got some fantastic partners who've kind of helped and supported us along the way. And check out our website, sparkyourhealth.co.uk. We've got all our kind of partners on there. We've got testimonials on there, and we kind of celebrate our partners, we celebrate our customers. We celebrate our users. It's yeah, absolutely, it's kind of leveraging, these four pillars, because we firmly believe you can't make progress without having all four.
So it sounds fantastic, Jawad. What does
Yeah.
the future look like for you and
So
for the organisations that partner with you?
absolutely. So the future is, improved, continuous improvement. So, how can we make the experience better? How can we, it's a bit cliched, but, how can we leverage things like AI, to kind of make the lives of both the user and the organization, a lot easier, a lot better. And what we're seeing is that AI enables us to understand patterns, to kind of make recommendations, to almost unify all the four different modules of mental, physical, social, financial, and almost say, look, I'm not saying we're prescriptive, but actually say, look, how about trying this? How about, experimenting with this? This seems to make me feel, a lot better. How about if we increase the kind of, frequency of how and what you do? So that's definitely for the user side of things. We want it to be a really supportive companion without the negative connotations of AI. So we're very careful. Like I said, going back to my 20 plus years, of data experience and background, data governance and making sure, data ethics are followed is at the forefront of what we do. It's kind of data privacy, data security by design. So from the user perspective, that's definitely there. From a kind of organization perspective, we're already working with, a couple of organizations to see, how can we embed ourselves within, some of the HR, tools you've already got, some of the HR platforms you've got, to actually get more out of what they've already got. So, if we're looking at, seasonality, if we could almost say, you've got 10 members of staff, two might be going off sick soon. How do you kind of resource manage? And whilst we've never, we never share, the specific data of who, those individuals are. What we can do is we can work with, an organization to say, look, this is kind of at a critical risk, point. You've got a couple of members who are showing signs of burnout, and that is the likely cause for them going off sick. So you need to remedy that. You need to work on that. So again, can they utilize, the kind of resource management system? Can they utilize other, initiatives, other things to help mitigate that risk? And that's where we want to work with,
Mm,
other partners as well, wellness experts potentially, so we can offer, those solutions immediately for
mm,
to that organization. So it's a long roadmap. Wellbeing's, it's a very competitive area. There's a lot of players in it. Our key advantage is, we're a local company. We're currently working mainly with kind of local businesses, and we're here to solve problems. We're not here to just kind of, here's an off-the-shelf solution, see you later, bye.
mm.
we're having regular calls. We're visiting our customer base regularly, and it's a partnership. We grow together. We want to build the best digital wellbeing platform in the world.
Mm,
But let's start with Lancashire. Let's start local, and
love that.
let's get those pain points resolved. And crucially, let's see the tangible end results, which we are seeing and we are measuring. And that's the key for us, is having that measure of success, and the fact that clients are saying we are making those tangible improvements.
And talking of that continuous improvement, Jawad, that you're looking for going forward, looking back, what's been the biggest learning that you've taken out of the journey that you've had so far that's improved the thing going forward?
Yeah, so I think it's having that kind of self-awareness, having the knowledge and know-how of your kind of limitations, not being arrogant, being humble enough to say, right, I get X and Y in the process, but I'm not the expert on this, on marketing, on sales, for example, and then having people to help support you to do that. So I guess humility is from that waffle. Humility is probably the word, to know your strengths, but also be very aware of your weaknesses. It's not kind of a bad thing to say, I'm not actually good at that. I know this really well, but I'm not particularly good at that. And having then that ability to say, right, okay, I'm going to step back from this. I think that's been one of the kind of crucial learnings for me.
Brilliant. Jawad, I love what you're doing. I think it's fantastic. And I wish you all the best for the future and for the impact that you're going to have on lots of individuals.
Thank you, Mick. I really appreciate it, and honestly, there's nothing, no greater ROI for me as a founder than getting a testimonial, than getting some feedback from a user, from anyone to say, look, we've used Spark and it's helped us in this way. That's the greatest ROI, and whilst I keep getting those, we're going to keep at it on and keep on our mission.
Get you out of bed every morning.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Nice one. Thank you, Jawad. All the best.
Cheers, mate. Likewise. Thank you.